So after a few days of wild action in the SPYs, a couple of days of selling pressure, we've seen a very slow grind right back up to the all-time high. If you zoom in, you kind of see that pretty clearly. Starting at the lows, just very tight channel. So for the 20th time or so in 2017, wild action over a few days didn't lead to any downside. It led to just buyers slowly stepping in and giving us a new all-time high. So it seems like we've got a pretty good shot. We've got almost 3 weeks left in the year to close out the year without any change in tone. It's a pretty unique year. There it is. There's never been a 3+% pullback for the year. We had a little bit of sideways action down here, then holding lower before slowly grinding up again. But it's been pretty much since we took out the high. I guess, what is this here? So after Labor Day. So here's from Labor Day. And every once in a while we get like a couple red days before we grind up again and move sideways and grind up again. Looks like we're going to close at the high of the year. So unless some large intervening event occurs in the next couple of weeks. So in this environment, it'll be interesting to see if the calendar year ending has any change in the investment process or things change. But when you're looking back on the course of the year, and I'll do this as well, I think what you'll find in this environment, strong bid, slow grinding environment, companies that gap down on earnings that aren't that bad, that aren't guiding down a lot and have really bad news and are still in longer term uptrends, are really amazing opportunities over those few days after earnings when they start to move back up and tend to make new highs. So that's something to continue to keep an eye on as long as the market stays like this. Spend a little more time talking big picture because there's really the in-play stuff kind of is not that great today, but we'll go over it. Maybe one of them will turn out to trade really well. They're just not the most liquid names. On IWM, so we'll look at it as a little bit different here. After the weakness came back up and then has really been moving sideways with a little bit more selling pressure. So it definitely has differentiated itself. Now, we've seen it differentiate itself a couple of times in the last 2-3 months. And I think one time it led to some downside, and the other times it played catch up, meaning as the SPYs made new highs, people looked at it and said, oh, the small caps aren't at the highest. Why don't we play catch? And we'll do one of these like jobs, like straight and a moonshot. And then this one, after it pulled back here, was very quickly went up to the highs, made a new high. So can go either way, but obviously when it comes down, comes back up, and can't hold above 152, it's worth paying attention to that, especially if it starts to consolidate below 151.5 again, which had been the prior all-time high where it broke out from, and holds there and then breaks to the downside. You get a test of this, this low down here from the Flynn indictment day. All right, OMER. So OMER, FDA approved expanded use of their drug based on the pediatric clinical trial. In these situations where you get FDA approval, quite often it's already baked into the price. We can see that after selling off hard from around $22, $23 a share, and this was good news, it was gapped up, right? And they sold it hard and went down to the low teens, came back up to 20, failed to 20, failed to 20, started to hold above 20 a couple weeks ago. It's 20, so 20, what did I put on the sheet? I put 20, 50, 21 resistance. 20 is also an interesting level, but I guess, yeah, 20, 50. It's already, they got the approval gap here and people we're getting to sell the news already. The most rational, logical place for it to sell to would be down here, what I put on the sheet, 1820. So it's really 18 to 18 and a half based on the last month or so. Here, 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 here. So that's where buyers stepped in after the big move to $20. Here you can see 14 to 20, really big move, comes back in, tests 18 a couple of times, then holds above 18 and a half, goes up to 20, fails again, comes back down to 18 and a half. So this is the spot, if they're selling on this piece of news, where you want to see if buyers step in and do one of these jobbies right back up to 20. So normally does 1 million shares. That's kind of why I put it first. It'd be nice if it did 2 to 3 million shares today. It would be pretty liquid. Can't tell if it trades in 5-cent increments. If it does trade in 5-cent increments like that stock I was trading yesterday, GBT, it can be a little bit nutty. I mean, GBT eventually bounced from that area at the like below 40 to 44, 45, but had a couple of crazy down moves in between. For those of you who aren't familiar, they did this pilot program maybe in the last year or so, where they started to let some lower price stocks trade not in penny spreads, but in nickel increments. And the reasoning behind that, the lobbying that got that was they argued that market makers would come in and provide more liquidity and more stability to the pricing. Certainly that hasn't been my observational view, at least on ones that are in play. Maybe the one are not in play, that's the case. But from our perspective, I mean, for many years I've been saying we should go back to nickel spreads just from a trading standpoint. We would get some better price action for short-term traders. So it'll be interesting to see what the results of the pilot study are. Maybe more stocks will move to nickel spreads, and for short-term traders who kind of know their price levels where they want to be in or short or whatever, it'll be good for us because things will move more quickly, $1, $2. We saw that yesterday in GBT. Twice I bought it and was up $1 within 2 minutes, very quickly. So that's on OMER. GLYC was good phase 1, phase 2 data. So these are the ones, normally the earlier data, the phase 1, phase 2. Earlier in development, you get more people to pile in and they run them up into the phase 3 data or the approvals. So let's see what we got on the daily on this one. Okay, well, first of all, we have the top here, which was 19. Did I put that on the sheet? Yes. And it's gapping above the most recent high was 1670. Okay, so you can see the wicks here on the 30-minute up to the long-term, the all-time high. Let's zoom in a little bit, see what we got. All right, so it went up there, it came back down. Did I put 1750 on there? Yes, I did. So after it topped out, well, first of all, it held 1750, then it went to the long-term resistance. It held 1750 again. It's actually pretty good volume. You can see it came in here. So people didn't want it there, and they got it to test 19 again. So now it looks like it might be trying to hold a little bit higher at 18. So 17 and a half and 18 are the levels to be watching right on the open. See if they support there. It's acting a little bit right now. I mean, it normally trades 500,000 shares. It's traded about 40% of its daily volume. It is acting right now where they want to try to push it through the all-time high. The question is, does it fail above there and come back below? If they push it through, 1950 to 20 very quickly, and then you see it holding back down below 19, a lot of momentum people will be caught, and you might get a kind of a flush through the pre-market support. So you want to see if it does actually hold this 18 and get above 19, kind of consolidating above there for a while, then breaking up to the upside, more likely to sustain that sort of up move. But either way, just be ready with those key levels to judge the strength or weakness. OAS, quite a downgrade. They're buying some assets. I assume that's why they're issuing shares to pay for those assets. 32 million shares. It's a lot. It normally it trades 7.5 million shares a day. So it's about 4 days worth of volume they issued. So if we look at it, Doesn't look good. So paying for your stock when your stock is beaten down to buy assets is never, people don't really like that. It's not good for your stock. So you wanna issue stock when it's up here after it's a run up to buy assets. So to dilute your shareholders at these low prices, not so great. So let's see here. All right, so recent price action was down here. They bought at 930 to 950. They got it to bounce back up to the mid 10s. Okay, we'll take a look at HMNY. That's decent news, and it hasn't really reacted that great lately. I guess it's been more negative than positive. I still don't get that. Like, how does that deal even work in New York City? Like, then I go to in the weekends, the early morning shows in Manhattan, so it's like $12 a ticket, but normally it's like 20, 25 bucks to go see a movie. So can you tell me I can really get that and use it in Manhattan? If that's the case, I really should get it. All right, so OAS. I mean, in this situation, I was thinking I would really like a flush. What I put on the sheet, 920. Yeah, I wanted a little bit lower flush, maybe down to 920, even into 9. Although you could get one of these situations, it's so bearish on this stock that it really could just break down. Anyway, I mean, I could definitely see it breaking down going through 9. Let's see what happens here if they pop it back up to where they're selling it in the pre-market, 948 to 950. Maybe quickly spikes, gets below 950, played on the short side. All right, Riot. Actually, let's do HMMY first. So here you can kind of see what I was talking about on the daily. So after it came back down and came up, like this is the, you know, unlike the blockchain Bitcoin related names, this thing it didn't really bounce back up a lot. We shorted the blow off top in the 30s, stayed shorted with the trend down to $12, but it had bounce potential at 10. It actually went all the way down through single digits, then came back up here and just, there was a lot of selling in the 14, 15 area. And then when it failed, it took out the lows here. I mean, pretty nasty. So it'll be interesting to see. It's 1160 bid right now. So it'll be interesting to see to me, like right here, does it fail in this 12 and a half area and just go right back down to 10? So again, that's just been the way it's behaving on the daily. You know, it's hard to believe that people will think this is some sort of game changer. Also, I don't understand how the business model would make any money. But it's cool as a consumer. I like it. So I didn't really have to draw anything new here. You can kind of see it came down into this area here. It gapped down and just like crushed it. It's right back up there. There's probably some people in from $8, $9. As soon as it fails here at 12, if it gets back down below, I'd say 1150, you're probably looking at a move back down to $9.5, $10. Happy to change my mind if the price action does something different than that. So Riot, I thought riding it from 12 and a half or 1270 up to 1930 in the pre-market yesterday was pretty good. Apparently, I underestimated its potential. It did fail on the open at 20, came off a couple of bucks. I covered my short, had a trailing stop above 1850. Was not around when it broke out above the morning high. Hopefully some people got flipped it there. So our next resistance wasn't until 22, which was here. It looks like it blew through that. And now it failed. When it got close to 22 the first time, it failed. It's made a higher low and then got to 22. And then blew through it, 23 and a half. So I guess 23 and a half is the first spot to watch in the morning if it gets sold, then 22. And one thing to point out, just generally, more broadly speaking, because, and we'll see what happens with Bitcoin over the next few months, but if Bitcoin actually stays up above $10,000, these things related, and that's why OSTK is in play today. Remember, years ago, OSTK started accepting Bitcoins. Any of these stocks that are peripherally related, or the executives, like in in the case of Riot, which had nothing to do with Bitcoin or crypto or blockchain at all, but just somehow said, oh, now we're biotech, but we're involved in blockchain. These stocks could be in play for a while. And so a short-term trader is great. Just have your list. I think actually Aaron put a list in the forums at one point. Maybe you can update that, or in the chat, put in your list of like 6 to 8 names that are related, and we can just have a little like the way that we do it on our platform is you can just have sector lists of stocks, and you can track them each day. What are they doing in relation to the open? Are they in play, etc. Just keep almost like a FANG group of stocks that some days they're gapping down, some days they're gapping up, they're in play. They seem to be in play today, very strong. This one's approaching the prior highs, which was the day, I guess in the pre-market it had been up here at 28. So it seems like people are targeting that. So maybe it has a blow off top in the morning and comes back down into these levels here. Yesterday I was able to locate shares. Hopefully you can as well. Interactive Brokers has a pretty good list. I know some of you guys trade at TradeStation. They're pretty good. Interactive Brokers has a pretty big list. TradeStation's better for automating your trading, although Interactive Brokers does have some features. XNet, which is another one which I missed the pullback by a couple of days ago. The prior time I bought it down below $12, caught the rally back up. And then we talked about shorting it here. I think I chastised a few of you guys for not getting short at 1850. And it came back down to 12 again. So it's trading very cleanly off of prior support and resistance areas. Came back down. The thing about it too is it's interesting. On the first down move from the highs, kind of overshot the breakout area a little bit, and then had a big bounce. And then again came down, they're buying it at 1250. Looked like it was getting ready to maybe have a bounce again, and shot down. And then the next day came back up. So that's a little bit of a pattern in it. So you should keep an eye on that. I've seen that in Roku a little bit as well, where it comes down to an area, you're like, oh, it looks pretty good here. They overshoot it to the downside, stop some people out. Then it gets back above this level here, and then just takes off to the upside. So I'm curious to see if it makes a little bit of a lower high today here, in the low 17s. Last time it was up here, it failed at 18.5. Maybe it starts to settle down in a tighter range between like 14 and 16 or something like that. Maybe get a nice sideways consolidation for a couple of weeks before the next move. SYRS, this was the one that I didn't buy at 585 in the pre-market. We had 18.5 as resistance. Just the idea was on this one, just very beaten down. Could it bounce a little bit? It did bounce right up to our spot from we discussed in the morning meeting. It failed at 8.5. I'm sure some people shorted it there. It came in $1. Then, this is pretty good. In terms of a very small retracement from 6 to 8.5, it retraced $1. So it's 40%. It's a decent size retracement. But then you had a tight consolidation right here at 8 and broke to the upside and took out the morning high, which is a long, quick retest. Went up another $1. It's pretty good. So looking at it this morning, we want to use that 8.5. Does it flush through and get back above it and go to 10, or does it flush through, fail to get back above 8.5, get below 8, and people are like, wow, we dodged a bullet here. We're going to sell it all the way back down to $7. I've seen both things happen recently, and so you should have an open mind against the 8 and the 8.5 levels to determine which way it's going to go. And then blue. I thought blue was pretty wild. The way it closed was pretty bearish. So let's zoom out and quickly look at the 30-minute. All right, so it had run up to 195, 196 here, got crushed. Right on the open, they flushed it through there, and then they had a pretty big bounce to 210, but it closed weak. So I would say we're running out of time here, so I can't go over Apple, but if I see something interesting in it, I'll put it in the chat. Anyway, the way that it closed was weak. It did have a good bounce off of this morning support area, about $10+. And so what I would look for this morning is if it bounces up to 200 to 202 and fails there, and then gets below 200 again, I would look for a deeper pullback. So 202, 200 would be the key. If it can't really get above that area and hold, because of the way it just faded again at the end of the day, I'd look for more downside.
Hope you enjoyed that video. You can actually watch that video if you're subscribed to our Trader 90 before the market even opens. What stocks are in play? What levels in those stocks are important? And how we might go about attacking that stock. That's Steve Spencer, 20-year veteran trader, laying it out there every morning before the market even opens. A really, really powerful tool to start your session off on the right foot. So right now we're offering a trial that you can take advantage of to access this meeting and other meetings throughout the day. We have a meeting at 11 a.m. Eastern where you can sit down with Mike Bellafiore and listen to him talk about what's going on during the morning session, what stocks were in play, what the best trade opportunities were, as well as maybe some things that we're looking at heading into the afternoon session. So I really encourage you to take advantage of that trial.